The second thing that I think plays a significant role is accurate diagnosis. Accurate diagnosis. You need to know what you're treating, because your treatment strategy, you're going to select the treatment strategy based upon the presenting problem. If you only have a partial picture of what's going on, you're going to only half treat that client. I remember to this day a case where I was brought in for consultation by a psychologist I had a great amount of esteem for. She was right on top of things. Even if she got a client who'd been seen multiple times in that clinic, she would do a standardized intake interview with that client and not just accept the interview that was first done with that client, or the third interview that was done with that client. She wanted to do her interview herself so she would get to know that client. And it's amazing. Sometimes you'll pick up a file and you'll find some things that in your interview is compared to the first clinical intake is totally inaccurate. Like they might say this person has one brother and one sister. The reality is they have 3 brothers and 2 sisters. Something happened there that the clinician made a mistake, wrote down the information incorrectly. And many times I've picked up reports where I come to the clinical impression section, and here is a set of diagnoses that isn't supported by anything in the paper up to that point. And that's not how I was trained. I was trained that if you put on there some clinical impressions, you better back it up with evidence that leads you to that conclusion. So, accurate diagnosis. I'll never forget the day I was brought in for consultation by the psychiatrist, and she was wondering, is there something else going on other than schizophrenia with this lady in her mid-50s, I would say. And so I did an independent evaluation. I used some tests because I had the ability as a clinical psychologist. That's kind of your bread and butter is testing. But I am also a proponent that you can get a lot of what you need from just the interview in and of itself. And usually any testing that you do is just supplemental. It either supports or it creates incongruencies that you have to then tease out. What's the reality here? So I sat down with her, did my independent evaluation, and basically I felt very strongly that there was a major depressive disorder recurrent in place as well. Now, so she had schizophrenia, and I believe strongly major depressive. Come to find out, psychiatrists had the same initial impressions. And so she worked with the client and her spouse to see if they would be willing to add a new set of medications to the treatment process. And initially, the husband was going like, if it's not broken, let's not, we don't need to fix it. It's not broken. She's doing okay. We don't need to fix it. But eventually, the psychiatrist was able to persuade both of them to try adding another medication to the arsenal. And literally, I can't communicate it to you enough. Literally, when I saw that person the next time, there was brightness in her eyes. She looked completely like a different person. And from what I heard from the psychiatrist is that the husband was so thankful. He was like, thank you for persisting. It's like I got my old wife back. Well, she had been treated for schizophrenia since she was in her early 20s. And now she's mid-50s. So for 30 plus years, she was basically what I would call half a life. Somebody made a mistake. There was an inaccurate, well, let's say a partial accurate diagnosis. Yes, there was schizophrenia, but somebody missed something. Accurate diagnosis is so important. So I tell my clients, or my students all the time, if you get a hit, for example, like with depression, always check for the bipolar side of the house, the manic hypomanic side of the house. Because there is a relationship between unipolar depression later becoming a bipolar situation. So you should always check.